Good afternoon to you. 406 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, John Stubbins will be here. We're going to be talking about an event taking place very soon at the Trump National Golf Club in order to support a great new documentary coming out on what's actually happening in the United States of America. The film is called American Anarchy. A lot of information coming up on that, and you and I can get together at that event. That'll be a lot of fun. John Stubbins talks to us at 4:30, and then we've got Joe Simonson here at 5:30 today, a senior investigative reporter for the Washington Free Beacon, as we get into all of the left's loud apologists for Islamic terror. That's ahead, and you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. This week, a lot of excitement in a variety of news outlets about melting down a statue of Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general, and thus further erasing the history of the Democrat Party here in the United States of America. It seems to be a pastime of the left to, throughout history, to constantly erase the evidence of its sins. For more on this, let's bring in Chris Bedford now. He's the executive editor of the Common Sense Society magazine and joins us on the phone. Hey, Chris, good to have you back with us, sir.
Great to be here.
I love how they're like, oh, the statue was secretly melted down. This is the Robert E. Lee statue from Charlottesville. And it's not much of a secret because there's videos of it, and it's all over the place right now.
Yeah, it was given to the Washington Post to show online. I mean, it's important to remember what was going on when this statue first came down. And there was a lot of talk about healing and a lot of talk about justice and a lot of talk about bringing people together. And then they took this down and they sent it to supposedly a museum, but it's really just a group of activists essentially are rewriting a lot of history and putting out terrible art where it was supposed to be handled in some kind of a dignified way. And then they made this video. And then, when you see this video of this beautiful statue melting, breaking down, you see it sent out by all these reporters, you're not looking at a nation that's coming together. You're not looking at a symbol that's even meant to stand for healing or an end to division. You're looking at a public humiliation ritual like they had in the ancient world. This is designed to show people, hey, I know that a lot of people were suing, a lot of people were trying to find out what happened to the statue. We'd promised it was going to be displayed in the museum. But that's not the case. We're actually going to melt it down, and we're going to show it, and you're going to have to watch. And it's just a sign of a sick country.
Yes, yeah, and like I said at the outset, the left has really specialized in a very unique form of gaslighting, I would say, which is that first of all, this is the reality of American history is that this is the Democrat Party who's governed so many of these horrific racially prejudiced moments throughout our history, and Robert E. Lee and his being a Confederate general and trying to protect the Confederacy and to protect the institution of slavery. That's the kind of thing that is worth remembering, not erasing. And so this has kind of a twin effect for the left. One, they suggest that it's actually their political opponents who are the Robert E. Lee people, and which is why this needs to be burned. And simultaneously, they're actually erasing the evidence of their own sins.
They are. And, this is not a statue of Nathan Bedford Forrest or some more controversial figure in the Civil War. Robert E. Lee was remembered by the people who he fought against, literally who he raised arms against as a gentleman and someone who was a uniter. This was someone who felt a deep affinity and a deep loyalty to Virginia. It's a place that he called his country. And this is someone who was he thought secession was a bad idea. This is someone who had grave reservations and worries about the sin of slavery. He's a more complicated man than is being portrayed. He did take up arms against his country, and he suffered a great deal for that. 600,000 Americans died. I think about literally 2%, I think, of the country at the end of it. But at the time when the war was over, he became kind of a national hero and someone who was a uniter, someone who pushed very in a hard way to try and bring the North and the South back together, which really didn't happen until the end of the 19th century with the Spanish-American War, and people started to talk. And, so that's history. That's context. That's something that should be talked about. That's something that should be taught. But the left's not interested in that. They just want to take it down and melt it.
And I should point out that they're not only do they want to melt a statue of Robert E. Lee, they want to melt every statue of every American founder that they can melt as well. I mean, this is, or any American president or famous American figures. I mean, for instance, you watched up in New York as the left led a movement to remove a statue of Teddy Roosevelt from outside front of the museum up there. Additionally, here in Washington, D.C., there's the Freedmen's Monument of a slave literally rising from his shackles as Abraham Lincoln is there, the man who's known for, of course, the Emancipation Proclamation and seeing the country through during the Civil War. There's the left wanted to remove that. Frederick Douglass was at the dedication of that statue. And the left has this immense appetite to destroy any sign of both our past and certainly of its dignity.
And I lived in that neighborhood at the time and was down there a lot, and the whole thing was a lie. I'd lived in that neighborhood for about 12 years, and there were people outside suddenly protesting, saying, "We have said this statue is harmful for years. We have asked for it to be removed for years, but no one's listened. And now we'll take matters into our own hands." And I'm sitting there with a bunch of neighbors saying, "No, you haven't. None of you live in this neighborhood. None of us have ever seen you. None of us have ever so much as seen a poster on a tree that said this statue is hurtful or this statue is offensive." And they're out there saying, "We haven't been heard, therefore we're out to tear down this statue of Abraham Lincoln and a freed slave." The whole thing was gaslighting. And it actually, in some ways, sometimes they were open about their intentions. You heard the term racial reckoning often. You didn't hear the term racial reconciliation. You kept on hearing reckoning in the Washington Post and CNN.
Good point.
And I wanted to ask these people, hey, do you know what that word means? Because it doesn't mean restorative justice. It doesn't mean righting wrongs. It means hurt. The reckoning means a punishment. It's not something that brings community together. It's something that punishes those you think have wronged you. And that's exactly what we're seeing, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the people who have been cheering the destruction of these statues with each passing week are more and more exposed for being the demons that they are, right? Because, for instance, BLM, Black Lives Matter, really all the fervor in 2020 around the George Floyd riots to destroy so many of these statues and things. This is kind of, in some ways, the culmination of that. You're melting a Robert E. Lee statue from Charlottesville that stood there. How long did that statue stand there in Charlottesville? It was a long time. It was from the late 1800s, I believe.
It went up in 1917, right as the last kind of the veterans were passing away. Also an interesting time. That was a time when the federal government really took an active interest in trying to get the South back on its feet. I mean, it had been 50 years since the end of the war, but when there was a national draft during World War I, they found that so many Southern soldiers, they couldn't even wear the uniform because their necks were swollen from malnutrition. And that's when the federal government said, maybe it's a problem, the deep problems that are going on in the South, how much they've suffered in the 50 years since the war, and really began a trip down there to try and just bring the country up to speed, bring it back together.
Yes.
And one fortune that paid off.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. And you can't, I mean, after the Civil War, you got to imagine what were they going through. It's like you can't live with a pariah class in your country, whereas it's just like, you're not allowed to be a part of society. We kept the Union together, but you're not allowed to be a part of it. I mean, that'd be a hell of an outcome.
It would be. And, the really sad thing about this, I mean, I'm a Northern guy. My family fought on both sides of the Civil War, but I'm from Massachusetts. What's sad about this is when we tear down this art, when we tear down these monuments, and we tear down this past, we're not putting anything up. We don't live in a society that creates a whole lot of beauty anymore. A lot of our artists are kind of frauds, just people who take advantage of the rich, and they just unveiled a Martin Luther King memorial in Boston that's weird and creepy and stupid, and even the only positive comments you could find in the newspaper was from the mayor. All the other people said, "I think they're making fun of us." No, if we had a society, if you went down to Richmond today and said where all those beautiful statues once stood, we're going to put beautiful statues that maybe are more representative of Richmond today than Richmond when they were put up, then I think you would have less of an argument from some people. But they don't want to create beautiful things. They just want to destroy, and they create ugliness.
Yeah, they sure do. And I mentioned Black Lives Matter and how they're exposed. I mean, just look at what they've been supporting after the terror attack in Israel. You have Black Lives Matter chapters across the country who were tweeting support for the terror attack, images of terrorists paragliding across the border into Israel to massacre civilians, and acting as if they are in solidarity with the terrorists, which apparently they must be, And yet here you have the Washington Post kind of doing the water carrying for the very same vile people this week.
Yeah, and we have a national amnesia about Black Lives Matter. When they showed back up on the scene in 2020, you just had to think back a few years to the Obama presidency when they'd been major. And the Black Lives Matter movement that was violent then and dangerous then had ended in Texas. I think it was Texas, when a Black Lives Matter gunman opened fire and killed a number of cops. And suddenly everyone wanted to forget about it. Then they came back 3 years later, or 4 or 5 years later. Everyone is saying, oh, what is this new movement? Are they here to spread peace? No, they're anti-family, they're Marxist, they're racist. It's not a healthy movement. A lot of people got very rich from it. A lot of corporations gave a lot of money.
You mentioned the fact that there's not enough appreciation for and encouragement of art in the United States. True art, valuable art, beautiful art. Do you sense that there will be a sea change on that subject? I know at the tail end, for instance, of the Trump administration, Donald Trump had clearly somebody had gotten to him and gotten in his ear and said, "Yeah, we need a lot more of that. We need some beauty." He had even proposed an entire park of statues dedicated to American heroes. Do you think that we will reach a turning point on this subject?
Yeah, I think we are starting to do that, where people are looking around at the brutalism and the architecture of the 60s and 70s and saying, why don't I have a say in this? Why do I need to have ugly buildings? Civic architecture is something that the public has to pay for, and the public, it's a symbol of your community and your government and your nation, and it's something that everybody sees. It's not just a private painting hanging in a museum or in a room. It's public, and I think that's the first thing that's starting to change. Is people are saying, why not beauty? But it does take some education, and I've been happy to just to make people feel confident enough. You don't need a master's degree or anything, any kind of a degree, to know what beautiful is. And that's one of the lies that the modern art movement's really put over on people in the modern architecture is just, hey, you guys aren't experts, you don't understand. But just enough education to let people think, you're allowed to speak your mind. You're allowed to say that new sculpture makes no sense. You're allowed to say that City Hall is very ugly. We have a voice in it. We get that confidence. I think we'll see things start to change.
Yeah, we don't need another building that's just a cube made of concrete or another building that's just all glass. Like, give us something that lifts us up. The human spirit is edified by art. And by the way, to get spiritual, it all points to heaven in the end. The more beauty you see. Okay. Hey, Chris Bedford, thank you as always, sir. Really appreciate your time as always and all of your excellent work. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Vince, and congratulations on your big win last night.
Not quite. Chris is referencing there was an event last night. It was a stand-up comedy thing. I didn't even really want to talk about it that much because it was my first try at stand-up comedy. I came in second place behind the excellent Mary Catherine Ham. But the upshot of that is both WMAL people, in her case, a WMAL alum, ended up taking home the top prizes last night. So thank you for that. Really appreciate that, Chris.
Talk to you soon.
That's Chris Bedford, as always. I wasn't even going to mention it, but I owe you an explanation for what he just said. It was fun, though. It was try my hand on a little stand-up comedy. I'm not saying I will never do it again. I had enough fun that I might do it again. Corey's applauding. Corey, you're paid to applaud, Corey. I don't know. Come on. No, okay. He's saying it's true. It was a good set. We don't actually. I would share it with you, but I don't think we actually have any video of it. It was apparently accidentally off the record. We'll look for it. If we find it, we'll share it. But in the meantime, it's 4:20 now. Yeah, only because Chris Bedford brought it up. I do have to say, that we did this. It's called The Funniest Celebrity in Washington, which the title's very lofty. You'd be hard-pressed to find celebrities among the group of people who performed last night, your present company included. I was like, it's a little crazy to call yourself a celebrity, I think. Maybe that's one of the jokes for the evening. But so we all got up there, and one after the other did some stand-up. And none of us are professional comedians. They had a professional comedian who did a set, and that was great. And then the rest of us, it was so-so. But one of the funniest things about it was, our producer here, Corey and Ganamort, was there. And we had a great table. We had also Chris Plant was there and his wife, his best gal, and a couple of other great people. I'm not going to mention everybody's names because I don't even know if they want to be mentioned. But you know, certainly some guests of our show were there. And one of the guys who was doing a set was the Playboy correspondent. I don't think he works at Playboy anymore, but his name's Brian Karam. He's the White House correspondent, and he was very proud of all the performances he put on at the White House when he would yell at Trump and it's like screaming at him. It's also crazy. But he got up and did a set, and it went really poorly. It went really poorly yesterday. But at one point, he was attacking, if you can believe it, Virginia Fox, the Republican congresswoman. He was like, "Did you hear Virginia Fox? She told a reporter to shut up." This week. And at that point, Corey, our producer, Corey and Gannon, starts clapping. Clapping that Virginia Fox had told a reporter this week to shut up. And he's like, "Oh, no, that's awful. It's anti-democratic." He said, "F Virginia Fox." He goes, "Beep, Virginia Fox," he says from the stage. And Corey yells back. No, Corey's just heckling the lefties now. Corey's yelling, "She's 90, he says. Like, what kind of threat is Virginia Fox? And that's true. She's a short little old woman, not a threat to anybody. If she wanted to stage a tyrannical takeover of the country, she couldn't manage it. It wouldn't happen. She's too frail. It wouldn't be possible. But the Playboy guy was very upset. Very upset. I actually think Corey should have taken home an award last night for being one of the funniest in the room. Because I was cracking up. Chris and I were having a grand old time watching this scene play out. Also, it was one of the funny things was the Playboy guy kept getting quotes wrong. He quoted various things in history the wrong way. And I kept hearing Chris Plant mutter next to me. He's like, "That's not the quote." And he's quoting, Bill Clinton in the middle of his sex scandal accurately. The guy on stage has no idea what he's talking about. Hilarious, honestly. Just really, really funny. Coming up, John Stubbins will be with us. Actually, there is an event that you and I can get together at. We'll tell you about it coming up next. Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 4:35 here on Newstalk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news on a Friday. Coming up on the show, Make That Joe Simonson will be with us at 5:30. We'll talk about all of those terror apologists right here in the United States of America. Terror glorifiers, in fact. Joe's been a journalist covering all of it, and he'll share what he's found with us. And you can join us today, as always, at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. There's an event coming up in the near term, Friday, November 17th, at the Trump National Golf Club. There's going to be a big fundraiser for a great documentary called American Anarchy. For more on what exactly is going on here and how I'll be playing a role in it, John Stubbins joins us now. He's the host of Indivisible with John Stubbins and the host of this event. Hey, John, great to have you with us, sir.
Hey, Vince, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing so good. John, tell me what's going on with American Anarchy. What is this documentary?
Well, this is a documentary that's going to be covering everything that started with the 2015 Trump campaign. They went after my friend Carter Page with the FISA warrants, if everybody remembers that. Those FISA warrants were illegal. They were deemed illegal. Everybody knows about them being illegal, and yet they continued on with those FISA warrants. And once President Trump was elected, they moved the spying, which they started in the campaign, into the Trump White House. Then they went after General Flynn, Roger Stone, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And now we have a two-tier justice system. You saw what happened on January 6th. You see what's happening now in the streets now. And this has got to stop.
Yep.
And so this documentary is going to expose all of those lies, plus, on top of that, another thread in the story about what BLM and Antifa were doing in the background, our border, the jab, big tech, their role in it. This thing has, imagine this as an octopus, a large, giant octopus. This has tentacles that cover all kinds of areas that are affecting the United States right now. And so, this is China. This is what's going on in the Middle East. It's all connected. And it also has to do with the green energy incentives, the weatherization program that Obama started to steal money out the back door of the U.S. Treasury and basically rob U.S. taxpayers of their hard-earned living. And now that's going further down the tubes because we have well over 5 million illegals that have gotten through the border, not to mention the gotaways that weren't even caught or processed.
Yes.
This is doing huge life-changing damage to our republic.
So what
Huge.
you're describing, John, is a world in chaos, and the point of the documentary is to create the through line, to find the signal through the noise, to really explain to people why this is all happening and who's behind it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've got some surprises that people are not going to believe when we expose these. It's just these people have sold out America. That's what they've done. And this is not just Democrats, although the Democratic Party and the Marxist movement, the CCP, BLM, Thousand Currents, all of these groups have really done unspeakable damage. But it's also Republicans. So we know who they are, but they have sold us down the river. They could care less about this country. It's all about what they can put into their wallet. And it's really sad. Being a military veteran and citizen journalist with my show, it is really sad because I've been doing I've got like 8 different investigations right now that are open, including against Adam Schiff. I've got him on 5 felony counts. These people are so corrupt. It blows my mind that they're not. They may actually be under indictment. I may not even know it, but I got to tell you, people should be tried for high treason.
Yeah, no shortage of work for American patriots in terms of digging into all this. Hey, John, tell me about this event at the Trump National Golf Club. Again, it's Friday, November 17th in the evening. What can people expect if they decide to buy a ticket and head on over?
Well, they can expect to get some amazing food, open bar, amazing music. I've got Dave Bray USA coming in, who has performed for President Trump more than a few times, and many other organizations, including Black Back to Blue, and just amazing organizations. Dave Bray does the music for my show, and he does amazing patriotic work on the stage. We've got Mark McKay, who is currently touring with Night Ranger right now, and his lead guitarist is so amazing. He's the lead guitarist for the Alan Parsons Project. Jeffrey is just him and Mark together are just going to blow you away. And then we've got Jay Edwards. And then on top of that, so we're going to have a night of music, Patriot Palooza, and then we've got General Flynn coming in. We've got Tom Homan, President's ICE Director. We've got my friend Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas. You saw what they just tried to do to him down in Texas, and they're still coming after Ken Paxton. We've got John Solomon. What an amazing journalist John Solomon is. He broke the story on the Russia hoax. He broke the story on the Hunter Biden crime family and the laptop with Hunter Biden. Look, this is going to be a night that people will never forget. I don't normally do events, but I'm doing this because this documentary is so important. And I don't normally plead with American people to help me do anything. As a military veteran, I try to do everything on my own and hold myself up by my own bootstraps. But I need your help, folks. I need your help, America. I need you to come to this event. I want to sell this thing out so we can get this documentary into your hands before the summer next year, so you have plenty of time to view this documentary, American Anarchy, and share it with everybody you know. I'm going to be going on Dinesh D'Souza's show. I just went on Dr. Sebastian Gorka's show.
Yep.
I think we're going to be doing Rudy Giuliani's show, John Solomon's show. So, look, we are here to bring the truth. But this is the time. American patriots say all the time, well, what can we do to help? Well, guess what? Now I'm asking you. We need your help. We need you to go to my website, johnstubbins.com, click on events, and buy a ticket to this event and come join us. That will be all the help you need to do. I'm not having rhinos at this event. These are conservative patriots who are actually doing something to change the trajectory that we're on. Not talkers, doers. And we need you now. And people, I need you to get out there and step up.
Yep.
Now is your opportunity. This is your opportunity. And Vince, we're thrilled that you're going to be with us. You're going to be helping. You're going to be with me emceeing this event. It's critical. And I cannot stress to you guys, all of you patriots out there, this is your chance. We talk about it all the time, and people always say, well, why aren't there more Americans stepping up and doing something? Well, guess what? Here we are. and we're doing something. And I'm going to hold these people accountable, and we're going to do it through people who can get it done. We need your help.
And there's going to be, as you point out, there's just going to be so many great friends and patriots there, people that we see who are fighting all over the place to make this happen. You know, you mentioned General Flynn, and Seb Gorka, of course, you mentioned you went on his show. He'll also be there, which is excellent. And I'm very much looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a nice night of some patriotic fellowship, and certainly to promote a really good effort here, which is to call attention to what's actually going on in our country. And John, we're talking to John Stubbins. One of the things I've been so encouraged by is that despite all of the efforts by various institutions to suppress art forms like this type of journalism, there has been some success on the right. I mean, we're looking at today, Dinesh D'Souza out with a new project, who's doing this very, very much getting the word out. But it takes this type of, I'll use the word aggression, of organization, of effort on the part of American patriots to actually get the news out.
Absolutely. And by the way, we're not only going to be screening my teaser for my film, but we're also going to have my friend Joe Knopp there. Joe lived with Laura and Eric Trump for 3 months while he was filming The Trump I Know. We're going to be showing that teaser, that trailer for Joe's film as well. We're also going to have a silent auction. You want to talk about, we got a Hank Aaron signed baseball. We've got jewelry for the ladies. We've got Trump merchandise coming up from Mar-a-Lago. I've got a military-grade drone. I mean, look, we've got cowboy hats. I mean, we're going to have some amazing silent auction merchandise for you folks. And it's just going to be simply a wonderful Patriot Palooza. This is a one-night event only. I'm not going to be doing a bunch of these events. I've got to, Cole and I and Joe Knopp, we've got to get busy filming the documentary so we can get it edited.
Yes.
And we've got to start that through. We're going to be running through the holidays. So this is it. This is the one night that you guys can come out.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Sorry for interrupting you. I'm curious about the timeline you mentioned. So obviously, this is all about charging up the documentary. We've got to get it's a fundraising effort. You're raising some money to get this documentary underway, to get people well informed of what's happening, and of course, you're going to get to shooting and producing this thing. What's the timeline in your view for getting this documentary out? If you reach your fundraising goals to actually charge this thing up, when might the public see it?
The public will see it by summer of next year, well before the election. And when they see this film, it's going to move the needle of this next election. It's that powerful, the information that we're going to provide. Everybody from President Trump to General Flynn to Devin Nunes to Ted Nugent to Ken Paxton, John Solomon, Dinesh. I mean, all these people are going to be part of this documentary. And we're very excited about it because, again, we need to bring the American people, the Republic, the truth, and let them know not only the truth, but what we're going to do about it. Not talk, action.
So, and I love that you're basing it, the core of it, if I understand it correctly, is kind of framed around Carter Page's story as it begins. And in Carter Page's life, there's a guy who's a great American veteran, who went to the Naval Academy, who was spied on by the United States government in an effort to take down a presidential campaign, and has truly just been run through the ringer as in the end, kind of like the guy who's standing in the very front of the rest of us, taking the brunt of the attack by the federal government. I love that you're focusing on Carter Page's story here.
Yeah, Carter is a friend and a brother. I love Carter, and what they did to him is unforgivable. They destroyed his life. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make amends for what they've done. And let me just say this. Don't forget, folks, this is coming from the DNC, Hillary Clinton, Obama, Biden, these crime families, okay, that have stolen your money. And don't forget this important fact. This is the party that banned God on national television from their charter. And then after they did that, if that wasn't enough, 2 years later, or 4 years later, I can't remember which, then they banned God from the Pledge of Allegiance. This is who you're dealing with. They want our country to burn. They don't want the United States to be free. They want it to be run by Islamic radicals and BLM and people that want our country destroyed. We have to fight this. And if you don't stand now, it's over. That's it.
It's a perilous time in our country. John Stubbins, host of Indivisible with John Stubbins. He's got a big event coming up at the Trump National Golf Club to support this great documentary, this project underway called American Anarchy. And John, if I have this correct, it looks like it's your name. That's the website, right? JohnStubbins.com?
Yeah, all people have to do is go to johnstubbins.com. And when you get to the website, click on events, and it will ask you, there's two options. One was we did one other event with my friend John Rich and Lee Greenwood down in Nashville. That was in May. The second option is the Trump National event. Click on more information for that event, and it'll take you to the page where you can buy your tickets and give you all the information about the ticket packages. So, I mean, our lowest price ticket, general admission, is $250. We have all the way up to $25,000 for sponsorships. If you do a sponsorship, you get 8 free guests with you, and you're going to get 8 free tickets to the red carpet premiere of the documentary when it's released. There's like 6 packages there people could choose from. Very cool. And I just went to the website to make sure I got it right, and that's John Stubbins. That's STUBBINS. JohnStubbins.com/event. If you just do that, it'll take you right to where you want to go. JohnStubbins.com/event. John, hey, thank you very much for doing this, and really appreciate your time today, sir. Now, normally I wouldn't be in the business of telling you should watch 60 Minutes this Sunday, but I think it's going to be a laugh fest, honestly. They've got a whole thing on Kamala Harris this weekend on 60 Minutes, and they've released a tease for it. This is the Kamala Harris tease. Take a listen to this. They sound very skeptical of this woman.
During these challenging times, Vice President Kamala Harris talks to 60 Minutes about her role in the Biden administration.
How often do you meet with him?
Multiple times a day.
You consider yourself...
By the way, I don't know if I'm not a body language expert, but she says multiple times a day, and she's shaking her head no when she does it. I don't know if that's a signal. Is that a tell usually? Any body language experts in the audience? Is that a tell? If somebody says, if they're shaking their head no when they say the answer, does that mean they don't actually do it? She's like, multiple times a day, and she's shaking her head back and forth.
Multiple times a day.
You consider yourself partners?
Absolutely.
She said absolutely, and she shook her head no again. I think I'm onto something.
Joe Biden.
And concerns among Democrats about whether the Biden-Harris ticket can win re-election.
That is a concern, and a legitimate concern.
Our democracy is on the line, Bill. And I frankly, in my head, do not have time for parlor games.
There's no room in my head, she tells 60 Minutes. I don't even have space to think. Isn't that amazing? And they say in the description for this that she's going to be discussing the situation in Israel and Gaza, which to me is hilarious, because if it's anything like her prior descriptions of conflicts in other countries, it's going to be a real doozy.
If you're watching any level of news, even social media, you're seeing everything that's going on right now in the Ukraine. Break it down in layman's terms for people who don't understand what's going on and how can this directly affect the people of the United States.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically, that's wrong.
I can't wait. That was a simple invasion, Russia into Ukraine. Imagine her describing the Arab-Israeli conflict. I can't wait. It's going to happen this weekend. A lot more ahead. We've got, let's see, Joe Simonson's joining us in this next hour as we talk about all those lefties who sure seem like they support terrorism. That's ahead.